Okay, welcome to our panel discussion from victim to victor and how to empower yourself by taking ownership of your life. My name's Kim and I'm your facilitator today, and I've got four wonderful guests here who are joining us, and hopefully we're going to have a wonderful conversation. So I'd like to go around the room and get each person to introduce themselves, if I may. So Ali, can we start with you?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name's Ali Sugars, and do you want us to tell you what we do? So I'm from Adelaide, and I'm the host and the principal founder of the Heart and Soul Business Academy, which is all about teaching people how in the areas of mindset, motivation, which is planning and goal setting, marketing, something we all have to do, and also the momentum, so keeping up things in business and growing. So that's a little bit about me. So I'm really pleased to be here. Thanks, guys, for having me.
Thank you for being here. Lyndal.
Yeah, hi, everyone. Good to see everybody. So what do? I am do a bit of everything, actually, but primarily I am the founder and creator of a suite of courses called Stepping Into Me, which is about helping people to find their own empowerment and discover who they are. I primarily work with people that have experienced trauma. And I also facilitate the tribe meeting within Sacred You, which is called Your Inner Oracle, which is about finding who you are. So yeah, that's me in a very, very, very small nutshell.
Wonderful. Great to have you here.
Thank you.
And all the way from China, we have our lovely Stuart.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, my name is Stuart Elliott, and I've been dubbed a soul whisperer by quite a few people. And my whole focus is on helping people navigate change in a friendly way. And, it is about personal growth. Change is one of those things that can hit us from anywhere, even if it's intentional, whether it's intentional or unintentional. And it's about that growth opportunity that it presents us. And one of my, core things is to help people be courageous, confident, and capable in the face of the change, and help them to navigate it in a beneficial way for them.
Oh, good to have you here. Good to see you again.
Yeah.
And we have our lovely Alison, all the way from Canada. So Alison, welcome.
Well, thanks, Kim. Yes, my name is Alison Perry-Davies. What I do, much like Lyndal, I suppose, a little bit of everything. I'm an author. I write primarily on healing and art and healing from trauma. I'm also have a collection of children's books on teaching kids that's just coming out that really teaches kids. It's the Don't Be Scared, Be Prepared series, and helping kids to be empowered and understand how to face challenges. I have a podcast. I'm a podcast host. My show is called Find Your Joy. And it's really about people coming on and sharing just that, how they found their joy, what gives them joy. And it can be about anything, whether it's a person who finds joy through music, through healing, through any of the arts. They might find it through organizing things. It doesn't matter. If whatever it is that you find your joy in, that's what I'd like to hear about. And aside from that, I do healing through art therapy and sound baths.
Wonderful. And the name of your podcast, did you say?
Find Your Joy.
Find Your Joy. It sounds wonderful. Sounds wonderful. Thank you very much. And seeing as I'm talking to Alison, I'm going to ask this question. Now, it's going to go to all of you, this first question, and just see how we go. But the question is, what does taking ownership of your life mean to you personally? How would you define it in your own words?
That's a great question. I think for me, taking ownership of my life was really about understanding that the choices were mine. I remember times in my life when I didn't really understand that fully, and that could either come by my way of blaming someone else or feeling like I needed permission from someone else. And a lot of these things, I think for most of us sometimes it comes through our life experiences. Sometimes it comes through just how we were raised or maybe what generation we're from. But for me, once I found out that I could really say it was all these things were my choices, whatever it was, and make those choices. I could choose to forgive or choose not to. I could choose to learn new things and find ways to heal and just keep moving forward, or not to. When I decided that I needed the power myself in my life, that was the only way that I could stop feeling like a victim, because I had that going on. I just took ownership of my life by realizing that I'm responsible for it and no one else is coming. There was not going to be a Spider-Man or Superman coming to save me. I needed to figure it out on my own.
You've just broken my dreams, being rescued. How terrible. Let's see, Lyndal, what does taking ownership of your life mean to you personally?
Yeah, for me, it's basically being able to live in a space of knowing that your words, your feelings, your actions, and your beliefs create the world as you know it. And that can be really confronting concept for a lot of people, because especially when they experience some traumatic things happen in their life, they come from a space of it's happening to me rather than for me. But we, like Alison was saying, we have a choice. We have a choice. We can wake up every morning. We can say, this is going to be an amazing day. Here I am. I'm facing it with my best foot forward. Or I can wake up as a victim and say, everyone hates me, my life's falling apart. And I can be in that mindset. And when we go into that, we're sort of giving our power away, because nobody on the planet can make you feel anything about yourself unless you allow them to. So it's really embodying who you are and those four things, what you feel, what you say, what you think, and what your beliefs are.
Thank you so much. By the way, I love the red hair. It's great. That's good. Ali, hello, Ali. What does taking ownership of your life mean for you personally?
Well, I love it because Lyndal literally just took the words out of my mouth, which is great. And then I love that it's less about what happened to me, because I could choose to say I've had a lot in life happen to me. But it's allowing my mindset to transform, going, okay, even though those things weren't that wonderful, how can I now translate them to say that they happened for me? What can I learn from them instead? And for me too, it's a huge thing of not, we're talking about, from victim to victory, but how can we move out of that, those emotions that we can allow ourselves to get stuck in. We can just sit in that, poor me mode. And I've been there several times. But it's a matter of transitioning through that and going, all right, what can, even though those things that have made me originally feel like a victim, how can I then now take learning opportunities? What can I do? What can I do? Even though someone else might have done that to me, I choose to make it work for me. Right? Does that make sense? So I can choose to learn and grow from that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I know it's so empowering, that moment when you accept responsibility for your
Absolutely.
own life.
Yeah.
And I remember the horror that I felt that when I realized that I was causing all of my own suffering. But in that was also that wonderful strength that if I was causing the suffering, I can also create the positives and change my life. So, I'm hearing very much what you're saying. And Stuart, what does taking ownership of your life mean for you?
Well, I mean, everybody who's spoken so far has basically touched on it. And the two words that are most significant for me anyway are victim and choice. And choice is something we always have. We don't have choice over incidences, but we always have choices over our reaction to them. And whether we are aware of it or not, whatever we do is through a choice that we've made either consciously or unconsciously, if you like. Unfortunately, our upbringing is more geared towards taking our power away from us. And we sort of fall into that trap that we often become the victim. Something's happened to me. This has happened. Fine, it's happened. Now we can choose how we want to go forward, but we don't realize that we have that power. And I think it's something that as we get older, we start to wake up to this negative conditioning, if you like, that's been put on us. And I think really that it would be wise for many people to teach it to people who, to younger children, so they feel empowered in everything they do. It doesn't make them arrogant. It just gives them that understanding about their true ability and their true self, so they don't fall into the traps that we've just discussed.
Yeah, it's a bit like being born with a shadow that we carry, for
It's
so
a
many
big shadow.
years.
It's a
And
big
a heavy
shadow.
one, a big one,
Yep.
and a heavy one. It really is, So thank you. What I'd really like to ask now is, in areas of your life, do you currently feel empowered and in control of your life? And if so, what strategies are you actually using to help you, maintain that?
Are you asking me?
Actually, I was just putting it out there as a question, but yes, Stuart, I thank you for volunteering.
Okay. Well, I think that the biggest strategy for me is the awareness strategy. And that's something that I have become aware of developing over the last, few years. When I was younger, I didn't have that awareness. I was more involved with the ego and other nonsense that, I'd collected throughout childhood. But, I've become more aware of being aware, if you like. But it is something that we have to, or I have to definitely keep practicing, keep working on. And then taking that awareness and accepting what's happening without the judgment that is often prevalent. Once we've got that, that gives us that power to choose how we want to react. And it is something that I still have to step into because, things happen and they trigger you, they trigger your emotions. And then you find yourself going down this emotional path rather than this path of reasoned choice. But even at that stage, as soon as you become aware of it, then you could stop it and say, okay, yeah, that's happening. How is it I want to proceed from here, from this moment? And there's no judgment there. There's no, I was a fool to go that door or anything else. It's that, and that is very, very empowering. But it is something that we have to really practice and keep working on because it's so easy to get the emotions involved.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Alison, I'm going to volunteer you next because I can see that you're being a great volunteer. What do you use for you to help you?
I think for me, if I try to remind myself, like we're telling the same story over and over, and I love it. I love the consistency and the line that goes through it. It's like singing a song. Everyone has a harmony piece. I love it. I think that for me, it's really reminding myself that I have a choice, even in the midst of something that's really, really hard. If it feels to me like I can't do it, I can step back, take a breath. Sometimes things feel too big. They do feel too big sometimes. And sometimes the reality is maybe they are too big. It definitely, the loss of someone we love or someone going through a terminal diagnosis or the kinds of things that are big, it doesn't even need to be that big for it to feel that big at times. And so for me to step back and take a breath, pause, and remember, I have a choice how I walk this out. I have a choice right now. Even if I felt like screaming or crying or whatever it is that I felt was going to overpower me, it's just really remembering that whatever it is, I get a choice to walk this out brilliantly. I recently going through something, someone that my brother is terminal, and he has a very short time. And I decided I was going to walk that through brilliantly. I was going to not be afraid. I was going to remember that I was going to stand with him the whole way, and we're getting down to the crunch of it all. And every time, if it feels a little bit too hard, I know I can stand back, take a breath, and remind myself I have a choice. I can walk through this and do the very best version that I know how to do this in. And that's going to be a lot better than later on having regret with it. And I think that's the greatest gift, I think, in my life that I ever received, was somehow realizing I have a choice how I do this. I can walk this out brilliantly, or not so much, and maybe regret it later, and then I get to learn for the next time.
Yeah, it's empowering to know that the choice is yours.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. It's a wonderful thing. Ali, strategies that you use?
A big thing for me is instinct, and this is something that's been coming up for me a lot lately, is listening, is allowing myself to trust in my own instinct. And again, as you were saying, Alison, allowing yourself to have those choices and believing in yourself that the choices that you make through your instinct, they're going to look after you. And it really is, once again, and I said this before, it is taking what you've learned from everything that you've experienced for you and listening to that instinct. And again, this is coming up for me a lot lately. There was a moment in my life recently when something was and something was saying in my mind, it's just not right. Something's going on here. And I completely ignored it. And I ended up getting, in this particular scenario, getting very, very upset because I ignored that. And it came out, that my instinct was correct. And again, that was a situation there when I had a choice. I could have decided to be the victim of something that happened to me. And I know I'm repeating myself here, but this is literally, the process that I went through. And instead I decided, you know what, I have a choice now that I'm going to move through this. I'm going to allow myself to feel what I need to feel. And this is a big thing for me too. It's just not just, this is the victim side of it, not just going, oh, I feel sorry for myself and, all this bad stuff happened to me and woe is me. It's like, you know what, I'm going to allow myself to feel that. That's fine, because that's all part of it. And we need to do that to a point. Then there comes a time when we need to go, okay, now I'm going to do what I need to do to overcome that feeling and to move on and to be happy. And like you said, Alison, have a choice. We make a choice to move on. We make a choice to be happy again. And even take a risk. It's even taking a risk to move on and see what else the universe has got for us.
Yeah, the courage to face the dark, I suppose.
Absolutely. Yeah. It is a scary thing it is a really scary thing to open yourself up to, like in your words, facing that dark, to facing the emotions, the stuff that's there. It's reality. Things will happen in our lives that it's going to happen. And that for me, it's very weird. As much as it's not a nice feeling while you're going through it, when you come out of it, it's like, wow, that was a really powerful thing to face that dark, to face those emotions. And now I feel so much freer and so much more powerful for it.
Yeah, rather than the running away and the fear and the scared. Absolutely.
It's easy to do that.
Yeah, very easy. You also mentioned there, Ali, the intuition, the little voice that says to do something. You know, I've got a sign in my office which says, the quieter I become, the more I can hear. And when I can stop the noise, the monkey mind, and just listen to that voice that just tells you how to be, where to go, what to do, and trust it. You know, it's sort of powerful, powerful thing. Lyndal, I bet you thought I forgot you.
Of course not.
So strategies you use.
Yeah, I think when you mentioned before the word control, that kind of made me chuckle to myself a little bit, because for me, one of the funny things about control was that when I got to a point that I let go of the idea that we can control anything other than, like what I said before, what we think, feel, believe, and do, that was a massive step for me, and a really big turning point for me, because it allows you to take the focus off everything else that's going around you, the noise, and to focus just purely on your own self-empowerment. So, you know, you're coming from a place of, it doesn't matter what you're doing. I'm not here to rescue you. I'm not here to save you. I'm not here to take on your energy as well. You know, as empaths as well, we take on a lot of people's energy when we're in those situations. And it's just saying, I can't control that. I can't control how you respond to me, but I can control what I do in relation to that. And the other thing too is, you know, we sort of, we only have to take on what we want to. So if someone's horrible to us, we don't need to accept that as our truth. It doesn't need to be our truth, right? We can't really let anybody hurt us unless we approve it, we allow it within ourselves. So it's that empowerment of self, of knowing who I am. This is what I'm thinking. This is what I'm feeling. This is what my beliefs are. I know who I am in this situation. I'm strong. It doesn't matter what you do because I'm strong in myself. So that would be my, that's kind of how I got to my space, I suppose,
Wonderful.
from learning. Yeah.
Wonderful. I know that I learned a long time ago to realize that, and I'm not, this is not to you personally, the wording, but I don't care what you think of me. I only care what I think of you, because that tells me who I am. What you think of me, I cannot control. You know, so I'm not going to take it on. I'm not going to wear it. I'm not going to carry the baggage of it. But how I think of you shows me who I am as a person. And that's where my lessons are. So, you know,
we're all mirroring each other. Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, next question that I really want to ask is, you know, can you recall a specific instance where you felt like a victim, and how did you handle it, or what did you do to get you out of that? So we're going to have a wonderful volunteer of Ali.
I knew it. I knew you were going to call on me, which is fine. Look, I'm going to take you back to quite a significant time, way back when I was in my 20s, my late 20s. It was, I had actually just left a domestic violence relationship with my husband, and I'd taken my 2 young children out, and I was very much in a victim mentality there. This was before I even knew any of this stuff. So I was definitely in victim mode then. But even back then, something that I experienced was I went into automatic survival mode, and it was, okay, I just need to compartmentalize and get stuff done. You know, there was obviously things that I still had children to raise. I had to find a house, a car, all of that type of stuff. And so it was literally compartmentalizing little bit by bit, sorting my life out. But one thing that I didn't realize at the time was that by compartmentalizing and by focusing on the logistics of the stuff, that I wasn't allowing my emotions. That was me holding on to them. That was that fear that we were talking about before. I was afraid to confront the emotions that I was going through. And I think the other thing that I learned then was because my kids were involved, is eventually it came around, I was like, oh, hang on, I've got to, you know, as much as my kids need to be looked after, I have to look after me first as mum to then be able to look after them. And so, and I want to say this, is something that I really had to do was I had to be brave enough to seek help from professionals. And this is something that I just want to put this out there to anyone who is experiencing anything like this or whatever. Please don't be scared to seek help from professionals. They're there for a reason. And if I hadn't done that, to be bluntly honest, I wouldn't be here today. So, yeah, they're just a few of the little things that, they're not little, none of them are little, they're all big things that I went through. And again, that was back in my mid to late 20s when I didn't know what I know now. So it's very much I was started in that victim mode, but I very quickly, and again, it's my instinct kicked in, and it's like, okay, so you need to look after yourself to be able to look after everyone else. So yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. It's a hell of a journey.
It is. And I'm still here to tell it, which I'm very proud of.
Stuart, for you, what kind of strategies, what kind of strategies, do you recall a particular incident in your life when you really felt like a victim and you had to solve it?
Yeah, I don't know whether I consciously felt like a victim, but I had an incident, for instance, when I was 15 or so, something like that, when I was on a school trip, and the seat I was sitting, well, the bus we were on, the school bus we were on, the coach, had little plastic numbers, attached to the seat in front. And one morning, as we were about to get on the bus, the teacher said, "You've got to all sit down in your normal seats." And I couldn't sit in my seat. I couldn't remember exactly which one it was. And the only seat that was empty was a seat with the numbers missing. So I was blamed, and I knew it wasn't me. I was blamed for pulling the numbers off. And I felt, powerless in that situation because there's nothing I can do. I couldn't remember my exact seat number. I knew it was a couple of seats away, but I couldn't remember which one. And I just had to accept what was happening. And the punishment was we had to clean the bus that evening rather than go to a party. And the bus driver, he was supervising us, and he said, "Look, I know it wasn't you." He knew exactly who it was, but he wasn't able to influence the teacher. So that made it better. But it was, I think, as much as anything else, it was that level of acceptance and realizing sometimes, and this lesson can come later, that sometimes we don't have control over that situation. We just have to go with it, even though you may be wrongly blamed, for instance. And it's something that I think that we have experiences quite often, but we don't see the significance of them until much later.
How do you feel that affected you, that moment? Because, the fact that here we are all these years later, you still remember it. So it had...
Well, I had to think hard because I don't recall feeling as if I was a victim. That was not a word in my vocabulary. I suppose it made me more introverted to a certain extent because I wasn't able to express myself, and I was a shy child anyway. So maybe it made me more introverted, but it also gave me more time to be with my thoughts. It wasn't for me a big thing to miss the party because I wasn't that sociable person because of shyness. So it was more the fact that I was wrongly blamed, that I couldn't remember which seat it was, so I couldn't stand up for myself. So, I think it's the effect is an unconscious effect, and it's only when you get later on in years and you start looking back and thinking and recognize through other life experiences that you see that there is a value in that situation and how it's helped you to grow and be developed. I realized much later that shyness was actually a blessing in disguise because it gave me observation skills that most people don't have. I was always looking for people to come and talk to me. I mean, oh, they're coming, they're coming, they're coming. No, they're not. You know, and I was reading people in ways that I couldn't even understand at that time. But now it's a skill that I have that many people still don't have, because they've never had to train it or develop it.
Thank you. Thank you. Lyndal, can you think of a specific moment in your life?
Yeah, I had a big one about 15 years ago. My mum was diagnosed with cancer, and just as she was coming into remission, I was diagnosed with cancer. So it was just ridiculous at the time, because I suppose, to give you a bit of context, it's only really was my brother, myself, and my mum. So my mum was kind of both my parents and my best friend in that sense. We were very, very close. And I've always been very, very spiritual, but it felt like the universe was conspiring against me at that point. It was like, how the hell does this happen? Like, how do two people in the same family go through cancer at the same time? And because it was a real tug of war, it was like, you know, I'd be in remission and then she'd be in remission, or she'd have to go back through chemo and I was in chemo. And it was just, we were taking turns being the patient and the carer throughout, you know, probably a 2-3 year period. And it was difficult, because when I look back at my patterning and conditioning at that point in time, I was brought up, you know, especially with my grandparents, from the perspective of, you just get on with it and you get things done and you don't let your emotions out, and, you know, tick those boxes and just keep going. So I was in such a space that I was on autopilot. And like Ali was talking about before, is you get into this space where you are not looking after yourself in any way, shape, or form, and you're just sort of running on adrenaline to get through what you've got to get through. And, you know, all the time in the back of my head, I'm thinking, this isn't right. Why is this happening? Why is this happening? Why is this happening? And it wasn't until later on, till I started to pull apart all this conditioning and patterning and allowed myself to feel some of these emotions of what I was going through, especially after my mum passed away. I realized that I could not have given her the type of care that she needed without me experiencing what she had gone through. So it was an absolute blessing for me to have cancer, because it allowed me to help her through the last few years of her life. And it's something that I would never take back. You know, it's a blessing. And I think when you can get to a point where the things that you experience in your life, the traumatic events that you experience, become wisdom, it's just such a beautiful empowerment of self. You're on mute, my dear.
To really recognize that this horror that is in front of you is actually a blessing is an amazing journey to go from the dark to the light. You know, it's but it takes a lot of knowledge and wisdom to be able to do that, to be able to see into the depth of it.
Yeah, that whole experience was really the start of me pulling my whole life apart, because, you know, after my mum died, the whole structure that I knew of my family unit, of everything I knew, had fallen apart. So you kind of get to a decision where you go, do I lay down and die, or do I rebuild it? So I decided to rebuild, but I decided to rebuild in a way that was right for me, in my truth. And in order to do that, I had to discover who I really was, without all of the patterning and conditioning. So,
Yes, you had to face you.
Absolutely. And that was one of the best things I've ever done in my life, and still doing every day, right? Every day you learn something new.
Good on you. Good on you. So, Alison, how have you gone with it?
First, thanks everybody so much for sharing what you've been sharing. It's been very powerful. So first of all, I'm going through in my mind exactly what it is that I want to share and what's coming. Sometimes, you get this thing that comes up, feels a little bit too big. Oh, should I be sharing that here? I think I will, and I'll try to do it in such a way that it's not triggering to anyone else, but and I have my daughter's permission to talk about these things, or I never would. So I'm a person who came from some rather significant sexual trauma in my younger years. And then when my daughter was quite young, she also experienced sexual trauma. So that's the part that I'll get that right out. So much like what Stuart was saying, I didn't see myself as a victim. I never thought to myself, I'm a victim. What I thought was that people are horrible. What I thought was, half the population couldn't be trusted. What I thought was, nobody understands me. People are picking on me. The word victim never entered my vocabulary in my self-talk. I only thought that everyone else was completely not worthy of my trust. But I didn't put that together. And why I think that it's important for me to say that is that there might be one person listening right now who's thinking the way that I did. I was a long way on my journey before I realized that I had, first of all, even been victimized. I didn't understand that. I thought I made a series of poor choices or these things wouldn't have happened. I had a lot of blame. I had a lot of shame. So when I got to the place where I understood that there was more to it than everyone was horrible, when I realized that I had actually been victimized, then that was actually it was a freeing time for me, because then I was able to come to a place, and much like Ali had said, through a lot of counseling. And I would say also, if any of us go to a counselor and maybe it doesn't work with one, or maybe it only does for a certain time, and then maybe it's time to find another sort of healing and another modality or another person. Sometimes it can take layers upon layers. Our pain and our trauma, it comes layers upon layers, and often our healing does as well. So for me, once I understood that I even felt like a victim, then I thought, I can't do this. I can't live this way. But it took a long time for me to understand that that's how I felt. There was just too much shame. I couldn't see past that. So now, I guess your question is, have I felt like a victim? Yes, at one point I did realize that that's what I felt like. And then I observed myself making choices as a victim would and living out my life as a victim would. And it was then that I thought, I cannot be a statistic. I've got to make shifts. Like Ali, I've got to make shifts for my kids. I've got to, they deserve more. And much like what Lyndal was saying, this was such a intergenerational, and it was so through my family that I learned from it. I learned from my own experience how to approach my daughter and talk to her the way that I had longed, if I'd ever had the courage to tell anyone what had happened to me, what I would have wanted someone to say to me. And so those were beautiful moments that I wouldn't have had. Yeah. So how do we learn to not be a victim? I suppose is, first of all, recognizing that might be what we're feeling like at all. And then understanding, like I would say to myself, it's okay, honey. It's okay. You're going to be okay. You didn't do anything wrong, and now you're just going to clean up a bit of this mess here and move on, and it's going to be all right. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, it does. And there's many powerful parts in what you just said, but a part that really touched me was how once we've been a victim, we then live the life of a victim. And we can some people live it their whole life.
Yeah.
They never get out of it. They never change. It's such a sad story to have to carry something like that for your whole life. You know, it's I know that I've met people in their 70s and 80s that still carry it from when they were just a child. You know, mum or dad said something or did something, and they've lived their whole life with that suffering, that pain. It's terrible, terrible. So I suppose the next question, and this one is for Lyndal, so just giving you a heads up here early. Self-awareness. How important is self-awareness in transforming yourself from victimhood through to empowerment?
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, I'm a big believer that all the answers that we need come from within, from every aspect. And, you know, it's like we've all said before, it's understanding that all the events in your life are happening for you, not to you, and you have the opportunity to change every aspect of your life. But in order to do that, you have to understand why you're creating it in the first place. Yeah. So if you don't have that self-awareness, you just get stuck in this pattern of the same situations, pulling in the same circumstances. Like I was talking with someone a couple of weeks ago, and they had a quite a traumatic experience in a relationship where their partner had cheated on them. And from that situation, they had formed a belief that all men cheat, right? So what they were doing is they were going out into the world and drawing in more men that were in relationships that were, you know, ready to cheat, because they had this suspicion in them that this is what's going to happen to me. This is what my life is now. I'm in this victim mode. Men are all the same, putting a blanket over it. And, you know, until she sort of realized that she was creating this by what she's putting out there, she's not able to change that. So having that awareness of, you know, what am I putting out there? What are my beliefs underneath all of this? It's very hard to get to that point when you're going through this trauma, when you're, you know, trying to feel it all. And because a lot of the times we shovel those feelings down and we don't let ourselves express that. So I would potentially recommend to allow yourself to feel these emotions, let it all out, and then go back and do the work, you know, and dive under what's happening underneath here. What's this belief that's causing me to bring in the same stuff that over and over again because I haven't learned that lesson?
And how many people keep suffering the same thing over and over and over and never understand why? Never understand why.
Exactly, yeah. It's a perfect opportunity to learn when you go and look at all the patterns of things that are happening in your life, you know, the same way. You can sit there and go, okay, there's something behind this. What do I need to look into?
What's the common denominator?
Absolutely.
That's me.
Yeah, that's it.
Thank you so much. Stuart, for you, self-awareness, how important is it?
I don't know whether the word self resonates so much, but just awareness is very, very important. And obviously that includes ourselves as well. And one of the dangers to me for self-awareness, if you focus on it, is you can focus on recreating the negativity rather than stepping away from it and then say, okay, this is what's happened, and accepting it. So there's a double-edged sword to me there that you know, we have to be careful of. And you know, sometimes we don't always have to relive the whole past to be able to put it to bed if we get the right help, because we don't need to revive the trauma and go back into it. So it's a delicate sort of balance, I think. And I think understanding patterns is very, very important. But at the same time as understanding them, be understanding that we've got the power to change those patterns. Now we've recognized them, and that they were only patterns because of something. And we don't need to necessarily know what it was that happened in the past. So it might sound a little bit like an evasive answer, but
No.
there's a delicate balance in my mind.
Yeah. I've never looked at self-awareness the way that you're explaining it there. For me, self-awareness has always been growth and awareness, becoming stronger.
Awareness is always edged with judgment.
Yeah, maybe you and I can have a good debate about that one, maybe.
Yeah, definitely.
That'd be a good one. That'd be a good one. So thank you very much for that. Alison, for you, self-awareness, how important?
Right. Trying to remember what the question was. So
Basically, what role does self-awareness play in the process?
Right. Well, I personally love self-awareness. I the same thing that I can if I'm focused in just on myself, is if I start to notice that the train's coming off the track a little bit, I start to feel myself say I'm in a situation and things just start to feel sideways a little bit. And then I can think, oh, now before I could have just gone right down that track, and I could have just been oblivious to why I was having a panic attack, or oblivious to why everything felt hideous around me, or whatever it was, or my imagination had gone, the same imagination that can help us to write a song or to paint a painting or do whatever. That same imagination would love to take me off on a journey and go, the most horrible thing is about to happen. So for me, being aware of that. So I'm aware of that. I understand that I have a great imagination. I understand that sometimes I can become anxious. I understand about myself that I have to be really cautious about how much, sugar I eat or sleep I get, or all of those things are just what makes me me. And I know that. So now if I'm in a situation and I start to feel something bubble up, the same voice that used to be really critical. I loved when you said that, Stuart, because yes, my awareness could be very judgmental to myself and others. I was an equal opportunity judger, and I would have that kind of going through my head. But now I can say, hey, it's okay. Just step back. All right. Now do some breathing. What's the situation? What are we looking at? And then I process it like that. And so the awareness, basically what we've all been talking about, is my awareness doesn't change the situation. Someone might still be driving in a way they shouldn't, or, a problem might be occurring somewhere, or a perceived challenge might be occurring. But how I'm able to process it now has changed. Because if I start to go down the path of some sort of negative self-talk about it, I can head that off at the pass and say, oh, okay, hang on. I see where you're going with that. You can prepare for that if you would like. We could make some other choices here. And I think that's one of the things that's been so helpful for me with finally understanding myself is how I process things. And some of that has actually changed how I process things so that I don't even arrive at that place. And some of it, I tend to be wired a certain way, and I can just take a look at that if it comes up. So I think that's how it works for me.
Yeah. I mean, self-awareness is that trigger that stops you falling in the hole. It's something internal self-awareness allows you to know that you're going somewhere you don't want to go. And it's when you hear it, when you listen to it, it protects you. That's how I see it. Ali, last but not least.
There's a couple of things. So I mentioned it before, self-awareness for me, and again, it's something that's been coming up a lot lately, is instinct. But I think also for me, something that I have learned about myself is that there's this little Ali sitting on my shoulder, and she's observing this Ellie. I don't know, it's a very difficult way to explain, but the way I picture it is, you know, I'm going through these emotions and these things are happening to me, but this Ellie here or up here or wherever you want to imagine her, she's the one that's going to help me unpack those layers of emotions to be able to deal with them and move through them. And, you know, it's a powerful thing to be able to allow yourself to unpack those emotions. Again, we were talking about the darkness, you know, going through the darkness. But yeah, I don't even know if I'm answering the question right. But
yeah, no, you're doing well.
Just to me, I've always pictured it as this little Ellie sitting on the shoulder. And when something happens now, I have learnt to listen to her. And it's like what she's saying. Okay, so, and it's something that this happened actually, and I know Lyndal, you mentioned a story, you know, with your mum about if you hadn't gone through that, you wouldn't have been able to look after your mum. And I don't know why, but it's not as significant as that, but something happened to me where just before COVID, I actually went for a job and I was dead set I was going to get this full-time job. And it was a choice between whether I run a business myself or whether I have this job. And I was going to get this job. I told myself. Anyway, I didn't get it. Ironically, I had just come out of a situation in a previous job where I'd gone through a complete mental breakdown. And this job that I applied for was exactly the same job I just left. 3 months later, the world shut down from COVID. And so if I had returned to that job, or if I had that job, and if I hadn't been almost forced into doing my business itself, I would have ended up right back where I started, right? So in essence, I was being looked after. I had to, again, this Ellie here had to observe those emotions. Okay, so why were you upset that you didn't get that job, right? How are you feeling about it now? And that was when I was able to come out of the victim mode from not getting that job to actually feeling, do you know what? That was a big victory for me. I was looked after, both by myself and the universe. Maybe I stuffed up that interview because I was meant to. It didn't feel good at the time, but in the end, it was something that happened for me. You see, us all coming back, it's all cycling back, isn't it?
Yeah, and it does, you know. And you know, for me, it's like the child and the adult. You know, the child is the one that gets upset and emotional and goes down the hole. And the adult is the one that steps in and just whispers. You know? So
sometimes this is the adult up here going, oh, you know what, just, you know.
Yeah. Even though you had a little one, I'm sort of imagining a big one. So there you go. Yeah. But our time is getting near. So my last question, I'm going to start with Stuart on this one, is if you could offer one piece of advice or a practical step for someone seeking to shift from victim to victor, what would that be?
It goes back to the awareness, acceptance, and choice, because that, I think, is a fundamental tenet of life. And, you know, become aware without judgment, accept without judgment, and then give yourself the power to make a choice of where you want to go from that position. And, you know, again, we have to recognize that it's not us. We are having things imposed upon us. And we may not be able to control that, but we can definitely control our reaction to it and see how we want to move on from there, as long as we don't judge ourselves as being, you know, the instigator, if you like, which often happens.
Great advice. Thank you. Alison, a piece of advice that you would give?
Yeah. If I was going to give one piece of advice or some advice to someone who's going through something where they are really stuck in victim mode, I would like to speak directly to them and say, I'm sorry that you're going through that. It's hard. I've been there. It's unpleasant. Please know that there's help. Reach out, find a good counselor, therapist, somebody that you can work with. and don't stop trying. And the other part of it is just know that you're going to be okay, that you can weather this, and really find a way to congratulate yourself for getting this far, and know that you can keep going and you can get farther, and you're going to be all right. Reach out, get some help.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. Thank you. Ali, last piece of advice.
I think, yes, self-help. There's a lot of self-help techniques out there, and they're all great. And there's going to be certain techniques that will work for some, and others, so they won't work for others. But as much as self-help techniques are powerful, I'm going to reiterate what Alison said. Please don't feel like you have to go through that alone, whatever you're going through. There are people, professionals, counsellors, coaches, whoever you need, they're there to help you. And most of them will understand, because they've probably been through something similar themselves. So don't feel like self-help techniques are the only thing that you have available to you. You have other help, people who are out there, and they want to help you. Yeah.
And they want to help you because they've been through it themselves and they understand it. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Lyndal, very last one of the day or evening, based on where you are in the world.
Yeah, I think it's having compassion and kindness for yourself as well, realizing that we're all spiritual beings here having a human experience, and sometimes we go through some really horrible stuff, and that's okay. We have to just maintain loving ourselves and respecting ourselves and appreciating who we are and what that experience is teaching us. And sometimes it's, as I said before, it's hard to see that when you're in it. But, if you can keep going back to that space of starting with yourself and asking yourself, what, like everyone has said, it's all great advice. Like, what choices do I have? What's my perspective on this? Because we hold all the answers, and we can change. We can change our patterning. We can change the way that things happen and how we react in our life. So love yourself, and then ask yourself the questions. Do the work.
Yeah. I believe victimhood is a major feeling of powerlessness. And it's in the power, it's in the standing up, it's in the turning around and facing the dark. It's in that you start to gain the awareness of that there are other doors, there's other ways. You don't have to live in that hole. You really don't. I want to thank all of you for being here today. For this panel discussion from Victim to Victor, it's brought to you by Sacred You, which is a wonderful organisation. And I would just personally like to thank each and every one of you for being here, for your participation, for everything that you've shared. I hope you'd also take something away from today for yourself. It's been wonderful. And our lovely Sophia is just showing up. So Sophia, I'm going to hand it over to you now, and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for facilitating a wonderful discussion. I've been sitting here in the background, putting everyone's links in the comments, and it's been great. And thank you for everyone's advice, really, 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 and just words of wisdom, the heartfelt words of wisdom. So thank you ever so much. Before we finish up, I'd just like to give everyone a very quick opportunity again, just to go around and just share anything that you're doing, share your business, share a certain upcoming expo that's coming on for the heart and soul, or anything else, just quickly. So Ali, why don't we start for you? Would you like to tell the audience? We have had people watching, we do have people watching us, so tell us a little bit about you and anything that you'd like to promote.
Yeah, so as I said, I am the principal and the founder of the Heart and Soul Business Academy, and I also run an Aligning Heart and Soul Virtual Expo, which is there's one coming up in November. So if you'd like to know more about that, I'm assuming my link may have gone up. And can I say?
Yes, you can say.
So I am about to begin hosting the Empowered Entrepreneurs Tribe in Sacred You, which I'm really thrilled to be doing. So that's very exciting.
Yes, we are very thrilled that you're thrilled, and really glad that you've come on board. I'm really looking forward to that. So thank you for that. And what about Alison? Is there anything that you'd like to promote, to give away, or let people know about?
Hi, absolutely. First of all, congratulations, Ali. I am just starting my exploration to do something through Sacred You myself. And so that's very encouraging, and see how exciting all the Alis and Alisons will be involved. What I'd just like to offer is, if anyone wants to contact me and have a complimentary hour, we can chat, we can explore what might be most helpful for you. I do creative play therapies. I do sound bath and vibrational healing. I just, if I can't figure it out, if we can't figure it out together, we can find out together where might be a good place for you. So that's what I would like to offer, is just a complimentary hour, just to hang out with me on Zoom.
Thank you. And I thoroughly recommend it. Alison's beautiful to talk to. I've had the honor of being on your podcast, Alison, and I'm looking forward to our next conversation sometime soon. So thank you. All right. And Stuart, tell us a little bit about you and your tribe. I know you said stuff in the beginning, but tell us about your tribe.
Every Thursday at 9 a.m. Perth time, which is 9 p.m. Eastern time, I have the Breakthrough the BS barriers, and you can take BS as something, or you can take it as belief systems. You choose. But whatever it is, we always carry some things in our head which limit us. And it can be as simple as, I'm not good enough, and as complicated as, I'm not good enough, because there's many sources of that thing. And we just have discussions and explore different areas. And some of the barriers are very, very easy to see, but others are very, very well hidden. So we have some great conversations about how to recognize them. And then once we recognize them, there's the awareness again, then we are able to start making choices how we deal with them. And next week on Wednesday night, Hong Kong time, I think it's 10 p.m. Hong Kong, Perth time, I have a free 1-hour workshop with a lady from South Africa on gratitude. We're calling it How Gratitude Heals and Steals, which is going to be very interesting. So the best thing to do is to reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I can give you more information about that or anything else. And if you want to get on a call and have an interesting chat, I mean, Alison can tell you how interesting it is, because we had a 2-hour chat the other day. And I'm always happy to do that.
Cool. Thank you. And of course, all your links are in the comments below all the videos. And Lyndal, what about your beautiful tribe?
Yeah, so I host the tribe Your Inner Oracle, which is all about discovering who you are through different ways and forms. So we have some really good topics that we discuss, some big taboo topics, which are always fun. And if there's anyone out there that resonates with me, they can contact me via my website, which is steppingintome.com.au. And I also have my book, which goes through my traumatic experience and how I rebuilt my life again. And that's called Stepping Into Me as well. So you can get that on Amazon or Audible or Kindle, I think. So yeah, links are all on my website. So thanks, Sophia.
Thank you. And of course, all the links are in the comments below. So thank you for that. Looking forward to your next meeting too.
Yes.
And Kim, last but not least, tell us about Sacred You. I'm going to leave it up to you. Tell us about Sacred You and how can we join? All the links are in the comments.
sacredu.love. That is the web address. That's probably the most important thing. SACREDU.love. It's an amazing community of people that are together, wanting to connect, wanting to find other like-minded people, wanting to find heartfelt people, and to come together and grow. We're meeting people via Zoom online that we may never experience actually breaking bread with in real life. But it's so heartfelt and beautiful to realize that you're not alone, that there are other people that think like you, that you can learn from, or that you can give to and help them. It's just an amazing community to come together and be a part of. But check it out. There's many, many things that are offered in Sacred You, and it's just growing and growing and becoming bigger and better, and it's something very wonderful. So come along.
All right.
And now Sophia.
And thank you for that. And of course, Kim is the co-creator of Sacred You. So do check out all the links below for everyone who's watching. Come and join us next week. Our next panel discussion is emotional intelligence, techniques for thriving in any situation. That's on next Wednesday evening, Australian Eastern Standard Time. Yes, we're still in the Eastern Standard Time, 7 p.m. And as Kim said, come and join us just for $1 Australian. Come and try us out for 2 weeks. Come and try out Lyndal's tribe, Stuart's tribe, Ali's soon-to-be tribe, yay, and all of our other tribes. We've got about 30 odd tribes that you can come and try out just for $1 Australian. And until then, thank you very much, and we will see everyone next time.
Bye.